bird flu outbreak forced the destruction of its entire 100,000 bird flock back in January. The first wave of more than 900 young ducks have arrived at the Crescent Duck Farm. More on these stories at townhall.com.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Onder Law. Call for a free consultation because winning is what we do at Onder Law. Call 314 or 618-9000. This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
What are the odds that the Ayatollah, Iran's religious and state leader, has ever heard of Knob Noster, Missouri? Why would he even care? Well, that's the home of Whiteman Air Force Base, which is home of the B-2 stealth bombers, the only planes big enough to carry a 30,000-pound bomb known as the MOB, mother of all bombs. That is a bunker buster bomb, which can go deep into the ground before it detonates. Perfect for underground nuke facilities in Iran. The B-2 has a top speed of more than 600 miles per hour. Range, just under 7,000 miles. A trip from Missouri to Iran, 7,000 miles. So the bomber has to be refueled en route and again on the return. This is a 14,000-mile round trip, lasting maybe 25 to 30 hours before the B-2 lands back in Missouri. From Knob Noster to Iran, delivering a made in USA message, don't mess with America or Israel. Now maybe the Ayatollah knows about Knob Noster.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
The Napoli heritage of fine dining continues with Napoli Kirkwood. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. So add that to Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. And don't forget about Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the district, Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, plus now, open Napoli Kirkwood.
Success. It's discipline. It's teamwork. It's the drive and passion inside of us that comes before all recognition. It's the best in each of us, made better by the best in all of us. Whatever success looks like to you, Stifel is invested in yours. That's why Stifel is one of the fastest growing global wealth management firms in the country. So whether you're an advisor or an investor, choose Stifel, where success meets success. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
News Talk STL. This hour of the Allman Report brought to you by STL Fenceworks, celebrating 50 years of industry-leading service for fence, deck, and leisure space solutions. Visit stlfenceworks.com.
Give me land, lots of land under starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence me in. Let me be by myself in the evening breeze. Listen to the murmur of the cottonwood trees. Send me off forever, but I ask you please. Don't fence me in. Don't fence me in. Just turn me loose. Let me straddle my own saddle underneath the western skies. On my cayuse, let me wander over yonder till I see the mountains rise. I want to ride to the ridge where the west commences. Gaze at the moon until I lose my senses. I can't look at hobbles and I can't stand fences.
Still just
Don't fence me in.
mesmerized.
Don't fence me in.
Is, by the way, Connors said Knob Noster. I'm thinking, man, dude, I've never heard Knob Noster pronounced like so kick-assly than the way Larry Connors says Knob Noster. Ooh, yeah. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here, really happy to be with you. Ashlyn over there piloting the plane. And, you know, I saw that there were 70. This is the difference between Israel and the Mooj. You know, this is the difference between Israel and most of the Arab world. Like when Israel gets attacked, they're honest about how many people are injured. So I'm seeing the headline on the TV and it says 70 people injured at an Israeli hospital or an Israeli building or whatever it was that was bombed. I'm thinking, well, there's a change of pace for a little while, because normally in Gaza, anytime there's something like that, it's always 3,000 people, including mostly infant babies and embryos, injured in a bombing by the IDF. So that's the big difference, is one group is honest in sometimes their misery, and the other group can't help but lie. That's the bottom line. I'll get to all that in just a little bit. Still, I have to tell you, and I'll get to this later on, that I know the world is going crazy and everything else, but my new favorite person is Sophie Cunningham, who is Caitlin Clark's teammate, who basically pulled down some hussy who happened to have also gouged Caitlin Clark's eyes. And I made the mistake of just kind of searching around the internet for Sophie Cunningham. And of course, she's hotter than the hinges of Hades. Never really realized that. And she's a badass, and she takes care of her people. And I'll get to that a little bit either. But so meantime, while you guys are listening to the show, or if you guys have a chance, you know, guys and gals, of course, look her up, because she's the next big thing. In the meantime, and welcome to the 3 Martini Lunch. You guys can go ahead and shake her up and go ahead and start sipping, okay? Because I'm about to lay on you. I found the reason why the Uniparty did not want President Trump elected. I found the reason in the latest from Scott Bassett, who is the Commerce Secretary, of course, Treasury Secretary, sorry, who pointed out that the job numbers and the wages and everything else for the blue collar are increasing ever. Blue collar wage growth already happening under Trump, just like it happened during the time of Trump's first term.
Blue collar wage growth, the only other time it's been this high, wait for it, was during President Trump's first term.
This is why they wanted the guy dead. See, you have to understand something, and I think we've talked about this before, and I'm not overstating it here. The fact of the matter is, the Uniparty, a strong middle class and a strong blue collar grouping in the United States of America, is the enemy of the Uniparty. Because the Democrats and Republicans who are part of the Uniparty don't want a strong middle class, because then there are people who are independent in droves. They want two types of Americans. They want the rich and they want the poor. They want people who need them for tax breaks and people who need them for handouts. They want people who need them for their little pet projects, and they could dump a bunch of money in the campaign. And then on the other hand, turn around, they need the poor people, the people who are underwaged, to always constantly come to them with their beaks open. That's the political structure we have in the country. I know you guys know that. And that's one of the things that was so insulting to the Uniparty when President Trump decided he was going to say, bring back manufacturing, when he decided he was going to start to stand up for, remember, the undereducated. Remember when, I'll never forget this because it was such a turnoff. Brian Kilmeade's a decent dude, but you know, I remember back in the day when President Trump said, I love the undereducated. Remember that? Because the news media, which there's only right behind the Uniparty, is the news media in its hatred of the middle class, its hatred of normal, average, everyday people. And so they always give you poll numbers and things like that, right? And they always talk about poll numbers among college educated people versus non-college educated people. The insinuation being that there's some kind of a difference and that non-college educated people, obviously the insinuation is it's built into the cake there, that they are a lower form of life than college educated people are. You guys who listen to Common Sense Radio know exactly it's probably the opposite. College educated people are probably more dangerous than non-college educated people. I think we've seen that. Whether we have seen it on college campuses of late or whatever, but we all know that the insinuation somehow that non-college educated people are dumber or not as wise as college educated people are is ridiculous. Most people actually get dumber the longer they stay in college, or more useless the longer they stay in college. So the Uniparty has to have this place where their relevance is constantly upheld. So again, when President Trump said, "I love the undereducated," Brian Kilmeade came, "Well, that's stupid. He means he loves dumb people." It's like, sorry, dude, that's not the case. President Trump said that. And again, if you want to know one of the main reasons why President Trump is so despised by the political class, the donor class, the consultant class, and the news media and everything else, is because he stands up for people who, when they have a level of economic power, also have a level of independence, and they don't like that. And the increase in wages among the middle class, which, by the way, is also coinciding with the fumigation of the blood poisoners, the illegal aliens from our midst. And that's only going to get better. But you see, of anything that these guys, it wasn't necessarily Trump's desire for peace or Trump's this or Trump's that. It was really his attraction to helping the middle class and helping the middle of America in terms of income and jobs and beyond, and bringing back jobs that were going to give people a modest income and perhaps a modest home with a modest car and maybe a modest boat. Who knows? But that's the worst fear of the Uniparty, because they want nothing to do with us peasants having any kind of power. Now, does that sound cynical? Yeah, but it's true. So that doesn't mean it's necessarily a cynical thing. That just means it's a true thing. And so when Bissett says, "Hey, looks like everything's going swimmingly for
Our
the
wage growth, the only other time it's been this high, wait for it, was during President Trump's first term. So we've seen real wages for hourly workers, non-supervisory workers, rise almost 2% in the first 5 months.
Why is that?
No president has done that before.
Well, you know why no president has done that before? Because no president has ever wanted to do that before. Because every president we've had before this, with the exception of Ronald Reagan, was part of the Uniparty process, the political class, the political process in this country, whose worst fear was the rise of the middle class, the rise of the peasants, the rise of the people who ultimately, through the power of their jobs and through the power of all that they're doing in terms of working and raising families, didn't need politicians. So when Scott Bissett says, "Oh, that's the first time in history that a president's ever done that," that's because it's the first time in history that a president's ever really wanted to do it, and also had a little bit of cooperation from the major parties, or at least the Republican Party on this case. But that's why it hasn't happened. So this great news is basically a you should look at it as a confirmation of why President Trump has been hated so much by members of the Uniparty.
It's the president's emphasis on manufacturing. I think there's also likely a component of whether it's 12 or 20 million illegal aliens coming out of the workforce. And Joe Biden opened the border and it was flooded. And that for working Americans, that's a disaster because it's pressure on their wages.
Right. And when Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, says for working Americans, it's a disaster. It's a disaster that the Democrat Party and the Republican Party has wanted. You understand that we all know that there are a variety of reasons why there are illegal aliens here and why the border has been porous for decades. And that's because both parties have allowed it to be. The Bush Republicans were just as bad at border enforcement than the Democrats. Why? Because they wanted to invite what essentially would be a virus that would kill off the middle class of America, that would kill off the people who work in the factories, or would kill off the Americans who worked in the meatpacking industry, in the agriculture industry. And once you move in a bunch of slave labor and human trafficked aliens, you've managed to cut people out of those jobs. And at the same time, then go in front of a television camera and lie to everybody about all the jobs the illegal aliens have are jobs that Americans won't do. You've heard people constantly, the Democrat Party's freaking out mostly about this because they with the middle class not needing them, they're going to be gone. But that's why. So of all the reasons, whether it be wanting more Democrat votes or wanting this or that, one of the reasons was a purposeful invitation of a fungus that would ultimately kill off the tree of the middle class. You think I'm crazy? No, I'm not. This is exactly what was going on. And that's what nobody's going to tell you in the political class because they've all been part of the design. So you have to understand when you look at the results, you oftentimes can find the reason. So when Scott Bessent says that the illegal aliens and the lack of border enforcement was a killer for the middle class, then you go back and you say, who would want the middle class to die? Then you have your answer. Who would want the middle class to die? Pretty much every member of the Democrat Party and certainly many members of the Republican Party. Because they want, again, an America where you have the poor and you have the rich, and each one of them needs something from you. Because when you have a majority of Americans who don't need anything from you, you can't raise money, you don't have power, and you can't become a millionaire over your 10 years in Congress. Now, I'll give you another example. So Anna Paulina Luna, who is a congresswoman from Florida, who is good. She's appropriately obnoxious sometimes, but she makes great points. And she says, hey, how come George Soros hasn't been subpoenaed about his involvement in the LA riots and his undermining of our election system and everything else? How come he hasn't been subpoenaed? And you know what the answer is, right? Republicans control the House and Senate. He could easily be subpoenaed, but they don't do it. And they don't do it because for them, Soros is an aid to them. They don't really care whether Soros funds riots. Riots are good for the Republican Party because they can campaign on them. I know it sounds like, I don't believe anybody, but that's the case. Vic and Ken earlier were talking about how crazy it was that these Democrats aren't showing up for hearings when they're subpoenaed. Well, and not being punished for it. Well, the people who can punish them are the Republicans, and they're not doing it. Back in the day, during President Trump's first term, none of those impeachment things and all that stuff would have happened had Republicans stepped in and stopped it. But they didn't. So again, we're up against a lot here. But the best part of all this is that you can't stop the results. You can't stop the news. And to me, the biggest headline right now, aside from Iran and Israel, you know what I'm saying, is that blue-collar wage growth is right now already happening. And then you start to see that it should have happened a long time ago and didn't, because Republicans and Democrats didn't want it to happen. President Trump did, and I'll repeat myself one more time. Dissent says no other president has achieved this, and that's because no other president has wanted it to happen. Ever since Ronald Reagan, although he wanted it to happen, but you saw a gradual diminishment and a destruction of the middle class and the manufacturing sector and everything else. That was all on purpose. And, COVID, which was, in my opinion, invited here as well, had a similar type of effect on the middle class and small businesses. Small business is the lifeblood of the country. And lo and behold, it aided the Uniparty in its desire to have bigger things that they could control and the smaller things that they couldn't control and were more independent to go away. I'll give you a quick example before I have to break again. And here's the thing. You know what's happened to the banks, right? You know what's happened. I'll never forget this, because Jeff Hansen, an old friend of mine, the late, great Jeff Hansen, he's a small business person, and small community banks are the lifeblood of small businesses. So a guy like Jeff Hansen would be able to go to his small bank when he needed something quickly for a loan for equipment. Sometimes small businesses use loans from community banks to make payroll when they can't or are having trouble or whatever is happening. But you've noticed that many of the small banks have gone away, right? I mean, that we're now just kind of like, you remember the too big to fail? And then there was also the too small to survive during that time. That was all a regimented, purposeful destruction of the community bank. And so if you remember, President Trump, a while back in his first campaign, went with Ben Carson up to Detroit. Remember that? He told black voters, what do you have to lose? That was a campaign going to Detroit promising a resurgence of community banks. That is also another reason why President Trump is hated by the Uniparty. The Uniparty doesn't want community banks. The Uniparty wants people who are dependent on their mega donor banks for loans. And now loans tell a small business guy to suck a rock. They can barely get loans now, and that eventually could kill them off and everything else. So that's the process. I've just told you the super secret here. Right, Ashley? It's a super secret. Did you know any of that? No, of course not. See, look at this. You always suspected it, though, didn't you? See, you guys did too. So I've just opened up the vault. Feel free to look around. You done with that first martini? Good. This is Common Sense Radio. It's the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
This is so stupid.
St. Louis's
okay. I'm hanging up on you now.
Place to talk. News Talk STL.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you know, Rick Pogue and I yesterday were talking about the Hideout. I just got off the phone with Dwayne, who is the owner of Sugar Creek Golf Club there, and which is the scene of Hideout 2. That's the clubhouse there. So all the food, all the drink, all the pretty girls running around in the golf carts asking if you want a beer or something, they're all Hideout people, and it's really pretty amazing. Love these guys and love just absolutely how proud they are of what they do. Hideout 2 at Sugar Creek, and then Hideout 1 right there off of Gravois, and it's about 10 minutes south of 270. Last night was bike night. This weekend it's going to be hot. So depending on what you like, I mean, if you're like me, you like to be outdoors even when it is hot because it's summer in St. Louis and that's how we like it. But sometimes if you need to cool off, you go right into the cool confines of the Hideout. Enjoy their brand new dinner menu, which is awesome. Enjoy their fabulous drinks, their great wings, their mini tacos are absolutely great. Their new pizzas, their burgers, everything else is absolutely just beautiful. It's the Hideout. It's only 10 minutes south of 270. Rick and Jake do a wonderful job of just creating a great party atmosphere, music all weekend long, and it is a blast. You can go there tonight to watch the basketball, whatever you want to do. The Hideout right there, 10 minutes south of 270 in Gravois. And also, ladies and gentlemen, all you have to do is check it out, Hideout 2 at Sugar Creek, when you are enjoying the links, the Hideout.
Tired of floors that don't stand up to real life? Hometown Floors has the solution. With 40 years of experience, they know floors. 100% made in the USA. Luxury vinyl, laminate carpet, pet-friendly, and built to last. Free and home estimates, professional installation, and satisfaction guaranteed. Hometown Floors, making small business great again. Check us out at hometownfloorsonline.com.
Get ready, St. Louis. The Cubs are coming to town June 23rd through the 26th. The Cardinals host baseball's best rivalry at Busch Stadium in a series that always delivers. The Chicago STL rivalry is legendary, and the energy in the ballpark will be electric. It's the perfect way to spend a summer day or night at the ballpark with passionate fans and nonstop action. Don't miss out. Get your tickets today at cardinals.com/tickets.
Hey, this is Sonny Gray, St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
Catch a Cardinals game on your next date night or friends night out. Whether it's love in the stands or laughter with your crew, nothing beats ballpark vibes under the lights. Cold drinks, great eats, and Cardinals baseball. Check out Friday Night Live at Busch Stadium and enjoy happy hour price food and drinks all game long. Every Friday home game. Get your tickets today at cardinals.com and make memories that go beyond the scoreboard. Busch Stadium, where great nights begin.
All the information I need on the drive to work.
Mike Ferguson in the morning. I keep it on throughout the day, whether it's local, national, or something big that's happening overseas.
News, analysis, and opinion.
St. Louis is #1 for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here. Really happy to be with you. And this is, you think that, like, man, I'm glad the news media, the Anna media wasn't around in World War II. We would have lost it. They would have blown the cover off of the D-Day invasion, everything else. They wouldn't have cared. And thank God they weren't around. They helpfully managed to ruin things in the Vietnam War. And so that's one of the reasons why the Vietnam War failed, was because of the news media and their just massive propaganda campaign. I don't think it was a great war to begin with, but you know what I mean. But man, so the Wall Street Journal decides, and of course the Wall Street Journal hates Donald Trump. You know that, right? Okay, good. So, because the Wall Street Journal, they're the Neil Cavuto Republicans, and you know that. Of course you do. So the Wall Street Journal reported that President Trump told aides he approved attack plans for Iran, but was holding off on his final order. And President Trump's like, they don't know what the hell I'm doing. Two things are really wrong here. One is, if somebody told the Wall Street Journal they ought to be hung if they're from Trump's administration. But the second thing is probably more likely true, and that is the Wall Street Journal just made it up. And they don't care. And you'd think that, and I'm not saying that the news media has to be constantly like an arm of the government or whatever. But in wartime, and especially when you're in a situation where so much is on the line, including the lives of Americans overseas and beyond, you would think that the Wall Street Journal will be like, I don't know, do we want to tell Iran that President Trump has approved attack plans? Do we want to actually tell them that? There could be a chance, if you're thinking about it, that Iran will respond to that news by preemptively killing 100 American soldiers. Could happen. On the other hand, you could also say, well, yeah, it's good they know that because, then they're scared and whatever. So it has its, but whatever reason, though, if you're the Wall Street Journal, how is it possible? And by the way, this is an ongoing thing. This has happened quite a bit. How is it possible that a news media outlet would divulge possible war plans? And I realize, I know, right? With the news media, it's always, truth dies in darkness. But when you have this much at stake, is it really helpful or good that the news media is gratuitously reporting war plans, the war plans of the commander-in-chief? President Trump says it's not true, but either way, they're still reporting it and still doing that. How many times have you seen where reporters are asking, well, how many planes do you have ready to go? It's like, I'm not telling you how many planes I have. I mean, and these reporters act like they're kind of like doing some kind of civic duty, not realizing that most Americans, most normal, average, everyday Americans don't really need to hear this. They really don't need to hear this. In fact, most normal Americans, I would hope if you're a normal American, you would be like, oh, why are they saying that? Why are they reporting that? Why are they putting the lives of Americans in danger by divulging the commander-in-chief's war plans? Most Americans don't like that. They don't think that, but for the Wall Street Journal, they think it's cool because, oh, look, we've got a scoop. And then what happens is, as you all know, Wall Street Journal reports on this. And then lo and behold, every other news organization reports by citing the report from the Wall Street Journal. According to the Wall Street Journal, you all know how that works. That's how it works in the media. Then, of course, Fox News will report it and then remind you that the Wall Street Journal is the parent company of Fox News. I was like, okay. So that's how this kind of thing works. So it's not just an isolated operation. Now everybody's reporting it, and then everybody's reporting it as if it is the absolute truth because it's the Wall Street Journal. And that's the other thing that's kind of crazy in this world, and that is that the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, just by their very existence, are considered to be credible, lockdown truth sources, which is really kind of weird to me. Well, it's in the New York Times. It's like, wait a minute, this isn't like 1972. And I think most Americans have kind of grown out of that whole thing. All right, people, more media malpractice on the way. And also, you're going to love, we're hearing from the world's highest IQ holder. And you might be pleasantly surprised at what the world's highest IQ holder says he believes. All that coming up on the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
News Talk STL. Always streaming on your smart speaker, our mobile app, or newstalkstl.com.
Oh, Stewart's American Mortgage. All you have to do is Google the bagel loan. And the bagel is a beautiful thing because, Stewart and Jordan are Jewish guys, and proudly so. And, of course, first of all, they could have thought of a donut loan. But, Stewart's from New York, he's from Brooklyn, right? And it's Bagel City over there. So he's like, let's do the bagel loan, which means zero. And all you have to do is Google the bagel loan, and you'll see that there are no appraisal fees, no lending fees. There are no closing costs, all while the rate is the lowest you're going to find anywhere in the land for your home purchase. I know just how Jordan and his team operate because I partner with him on a number of different home sales because, as you know, I am a real estate agent with the Walner home selling team. So I go to Jordan all the time because I know he's going to help my people. In fact, one of my clients saved $6,000. In fact, Jordan called me like right afterwards, very excited, because I just saved your client $6,000. I'm like, really? She couldn't even believe it. But he did, because she didn't have to pay all these obnoxious fees that a lot of these lenders are charging. And the answer, when you say, well, how can they do that? Because a lot of people in the land, well, wait, this isn't right. You can't do that. Yeah, you can. You guys just are greedy, and you're trying to kind of take every little cent you can. That's why you charge people $300 for a credit pull. So the dirty little secret is out that it can be done when you do it in volume and when you do it because you're really good at it and people come to you. Google the bagel loan. When you apply, tell them that Allman sent you. Thank them for supporting free, common sense, conservative radio. You can also do this when you are wanting to refi. And, of course, when you are wanting to do a debt consolidation, Jordan and Stewart will help you with that as well. They're just really good at what they do. They make things happen where the other guys do not. Google the bagel loan and check it out.
Getting new flooring can be exciting, or it can be a hassle. To make sure you have a great experience, use Michael's Flooring, like I did. Hi, it's Susie Moore, and Michael's Flooring has become my go-to for quality, variety, and an all-around great experience. They've been locally owned and operated for more than 30 years. Carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, natural stone, luxury vinyl, it doesn't matter. Michael's Flooring is ready to help. 3 locations to pick from: St. Peter's, Darting Prairie, and Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloor.com. That's igotfloor.com.
Concerned about the condition of your windows driving up your energy bills? I was too. It's only called STL Windows and Doors. Call today for your free in-home estimate and start saving tomorrow. 314-277-5952 or stlwindowsanddoors.com.
Tony Colombo here for All Solutions Pest Control, the team Christine and I trust to protect our home. We've used multiple services at multiple homes over the years, and I can tell you from all that experience, All Solutions is second to none. If you have a pest problem of any kind, or more importantly, just want to prevent a problem, All Solutions is the team to call. Learn more and take advantage of their incredible $67 introductory offer right now at allsolutionspestcontrol.com.
If a pest-free home is your goal, call All Solutions Pest Control.
You guys know I love to hear this. Richard Newstetter called me yesterday, and he said, I had one of your listeners come in to buy a bull of a watch, the Frank Sinatra line bull of a watch. And first of all, you're making me look really super good, because that's the point of sponsoring free, common sense, conservative radio and the Allman Report. And that is that hopefully you folks who are listening are also taking my advice when it comes to anything you need from the people who sponsor the show and who pay the freight for the radio that you like. And Newstetter's Fine Jewelry does this, just that. Richard Newstetter has been a longtime friend of mine and supporter of the Allman Report. His daughter, Diana, is just absolutely wonderful. She's a real expert. Richard sometimes leaves a lot of it to Diana because he's in the business a long time. He even says a little kid working at Jackards. He's one of the few remaining master engravers around. And, of course, Diana's learned a lot from her dad, and she does a great job making sure she can make you a king for as little, or queen for as little as $250. They have the lab-grown diamonds there, which are absolutely beautiful, as well as the mine-grown. And, of course, all of these beautiful gemstones, the old-school sapphires and rubies and things like that. And then, of course, the gold. Gold is kind of back in style. Remember, people kind of shed it in the 90s and 2000s because they thought it was so 80s. Well, it's back. It's beautiful. And people are wearing a lot more gold now. And, of course, now the Bulova watch, the Frank Sinatra line Bulova watch, which is beautiful, comes in kind of a cool little case, great for a gift. Looks like an LP record case. And, of course, you guys know I've been sporting one for a long time now, thanks to my friends at Newstetter's Fine Jewelry. It's right there at Doherty Ferry and Big Ben. Check it out, wowdiamonds.com. That's wowdiamonds.com.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
What the heck are bunker buster bombs, and should the U.S. be providing one? We'll ask National Defense expert Steve Bucci at 4:20.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps, weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
Taking my time, choosing my line, trying to decide what to do.
Good afternoon, everyone, and this is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here, really super happy to be with you. Phil Powers, thank you so much, man. You're a cool dude. Thank you for all of that. I love your energy at this time slot, Jamie. I love live radio. You guys know I've always have loved live radio. And I love this time slot. Thank you very much. I mean, the martinis do help a little bit, but for the most part, it's all natural me on the 3 Martini Lunch Common Sense Radio. Thank you guys so much. And I've got a little story to weave for you. You know, the president put up these brand new flags at the White House. And there's a guy who's another president from way, way back when. And he was the last guy to make the significant exterior improvements to the White House. And I'll tell you about that in the 1 o'clock hour. Brenda Talent going to be joining us at 1:30 from the Show Me Institute, talking about your property taxes. As promised, and this is great. I love this because this must drive all the non-believers nutsoid. So there's a guy named Dr. Young Hoon Kim. He's the founder and president of the United Sigma Intelligence Association. And this is named the Intelligence Association, not because it's like an intelligence agency or they're spies or anything. It's because they're really intelligent. Like, they're the definition of intelligent. Like, you know, the Central Intelligence Agency, for instance, the CIA, is not really intelligent. They're mostly a bunch of corrupt underminers of democracy all across the world, and they're just pretty bad people generally. And so, but they call themselves the Central Intelligence Agency, but the intelligence part is just more about, you know, well, we're getting intelligence. This is a real intelligence association. And he's a South Korean scholar. And he has supposedly the world's highest recorded IQ, estimated at 276, not 275, 276. And now he has decided to put this out on X, which is great. As the world's highest IQ record holder, and by the way, if you do have the highest IQ record and you are the highest IQ record holder, I don't think that's necessarily bragging or being boastful when you say, as the world's highest IQ record holder. It's like, yeah, you kind of have that, dude. Go for it. Well, he says, as the world's highest IQ record holder, I believe that Jesus Christ is God, the way, and the truth, and the life. I love that so much. And the reason why I love that so much is because, of course, I agree with him. And I love God. And I believe everything that the highest IQ holder believes. But what's funny about this is normally people have tried to portray people who of faith or people who are religious or whatever as just a bunch of dumb, culty peasants, And like we just believe in God because we're just a bunch of people who are anti-science or everything. You know what it is. Like the aggression towards people of faith is so marked in this country, not really by your fellow Americans, but by the elites in the news media and beyond, because they really don't like people who are of faith. Joyce Meyer, I'll never forget this. I'll remember this. So the Post-Dispatch did this big expose on Joyce Meyer, and they were trying to debunk her as some kind of megachurch crazy cult leader because she had a bunch of people who really loved going to her churches. And the thing that they really busted her on mostly was the fact that she flew around in a private plane. Now, this was about 10 years ago, probably. I really stepped up in her defense. I think she's really cool anyway. I've never met her before, but I really think her whole operation's cool. So anyway, their big beef with her is that she's this religious person, but she's flying around in a private jet. Now, what's crazy about that is that since that expose of Joyce Meyer flying around in a private jet, and of course, everybody knows that a private jet is a better form of travel if you're a person who is having to make appearances after appearances after appearances. It's very disruptive, indeed, sometimes even expensive, and indeed, sometimes even unreliable when you do commercial travel that way. A private plane not only is ultimately a saving mechanism, it's also a way, for you to get where you need to go. But they insinuate somehow that she was like stealing from her congregation or her people because she's flying around in luxury on a private jet. Curiously enough, ever since that story about Joyce Meyer and the private jet, the Post-Dispatch has never hung anybody out to dry, like, for instance, in the political class, for using private jets. In fact, I remember that it was me and some other people who were, and it might have been the Post, though, too, that mentioned Claire McCaskill and her private jet. I just can't remember. And actually, that was the last time Claire McCaskill ever agreed to be on the radio with me, is when I had her on the air as a senator and busted her over the private jet, and she never spoke to me again. Anyway, but that was their aggression. And since that time, the media never cares about anybody flying a private jet. And, it probably shouldn't. Like, for instance, when Bernie Sanders, I get it, Bernie Sanders flies around in a private jet. But Bernie Sanders makes the statement, he goes, I make these appearances all over the place. It's like, I got to use it. So anyway, what I'm saying is the aggression towards people of faith is so high. And some of it comes in the form of these, phony exposés. Others come in the form of just simply the dismissal of people who believe and they don't. Well, they're how do they believe in something they don't see? Right? And remember, of course, these are people who don't know anything about the Bible. Like, if it fell from the sky, they wouldn't know what it was. But we all know about what Jesus's teachings are. And one of the main ones, of course, is, blessed are those who believe but do not see. It's the very essence of faith. That's what it's all about. But to a lot of these people, I went to Boston College, so how can you possibly, But anyway, this guy also, there's a story. He goes, my world's highest IQ certificate by official world record and World Memory Championship and World Memory Sports Council, which is an official partnership with Guinness World Records. Thank you, everyone, for your trust in me. And so when the guy with the highest IQ, and I guarantee you, this isn't going to be reported because it by anybody in the mainstream media. And I guarantee you, if the world record holder for with the highest IQ said he believes in global warming, that would probably take over the airwaves with the people reporting on Iran and Israel. That would be the number one story. Like if this guy believed anything, the world holder of the world's highest IQ believes there actually is such a thing as Palestine. That would be like the number one thing, Although the world record holder of the highest IQ believes that Donald Trump is a maniac. It would be like the number one story. But instead, in this case, with the world record holder with the highest IQ, and I thank him so much for doing this. I mean, it's such a beautiful gift and a beautiful godly gift to be the world record holder with the highest IQ and decide you're going to use the power of your brain and of your credibility to reinvigorate the belief in the Lord Jesus Christ. Pretty crazy, because there's a million things he could probably use that capital on, right? He'd go out and buy a stock and say the world record holder with the highest IQ says you need to buy Pfizer now, and he just bought Pfizer, 2 minutes before. He could have done a million things, but instead, in a very godly way, he decided he was going to use that platform, that credibility for the one-shot deal where he declared that Jesus Christ is God, the way and the truth and the life. So just goes to show you there's hope for the world after all. Beautiful thing. Chances are pretty good. You're only going to hear it here on News Talk STL. So take it all in while you can. This is Common Sense Radio. It's the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Thanks for being with us.
Life's too busy for home maintenance hassles. That's where Nicole Whited Home Concierge Services comes in. From coordinating contractors and managing yearly maintenance appointments for your home and vehicles, to handling your mail, packages, and personal errands and shopping while you're home or away. Nicole takes care of the details so you don't have to. Nicole Whited Home Concierge Services. Call 314-766-1996. 314-766-1996. Effortless living starts here.
Since 1995, Renewal by Anderson has helped St. Louis homeowners upgrade with windows and doors. Now it's our 30th anniversary sale. You'll get $1,995 off every project. No gimmicks, real savings, and the nation's best warranty. The offer ends June 30th, so you don't want to wait. There are some restrictions. Visit rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service.
The Herzog Tomorrow Foundation provides private school tuition scholarships through Missouri's new Most Scholars program to cover the cost of accessible, high-quality schooling.
Hi, this is Myella Esser with the Herzog Tomorrow Foundation. Our private school tuition scholarships wouldn't be possible without the support of generous Missouri taxpayers. If you're a Missouri taxpayer interested in redirecting your tax dollars and sending them to Missouri students in need of a better education, please contact me at herzogmostscholars.org.
Better education for students creates a better tomorrow for all. Learn how you can help provide a better education for Missouri students at herzogmoscholars.org. That's herzogmoscholars.org. Also, sign up for The Lion, an initiative of the Herzog Foundation that carries articles covering a wide range of issues facing American families and culture. herzogfoundation.com. That's herzogfoundation.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm John Scott. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is targeting Iranian military and nuclear sites, while Iran is targeting Israeli hospitals.
They're targeting civilians because they're a criminal regime. They're the arch terrorists of the world. They want to have nuclear terrorism, which will put the entire world under nuclear blackmail, and they would use these weapons. That's what the Ayatollah Khamenei says that he would do. He would use these weapons to wipe Israel off the map. Well, he's not going to. We're not going to let him.
The latest attacks from Iran have injured at least 240 people. The seventh day of conflict come just a day after Iran's supreme leader rejected U.S. calls for surrender. President Trump has extended the deadline of a TikTok ban for a third time. White House correspondent Greg Clugston with that report.
The president signed an executive order to keep TikTok running in the U.S. for another 90 days. It gives his administration more time to broker a deal to bring the social media platform under American ownership. A White House spokesperson says the president does not want TikTok to go dark. Years ago, Donald Trump supported the TikTok ban because of privacy and security concerns. But now he has more than 15 million followers on TikTok, and there's no ban in sight. Greg Clugston, the White House.
Also at townhall.com, meteorologist Robbie Berg of the National Hurricane Center says Hurricane Eric made landfall in western Mexico's Oaxaca state as a Category 3 hurricane.
We do think that it's going to rapidly weaken as it continues moving farther inland. That said, one of the biggest hazards that will remain for probably another day or so is the heavy rainfall. Even though the storm is going to weaken, we expect that there's going to be continuous rains in some of those mountainous areas, and some places could see upwards of 16 inches of rain.
So far, there have been no injuries reported. No trading on Wall Street today in observance of the Juneteenth holiday. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy and founder of Wesley Financial Group. And I want to set the record straight. I am not an attorney. I've never wanted to be an attorney. And the truth is, I really don't even like attorneys. If I sound like an attorney, I'll apologize. But what I've learned in my 15 years in the timeshare cancellation business is you don't need to be an attorney to get folks out of their timeshare. At Wesley, we've helped over 40,000 families cancel their timeshare, and I want to share with you how we do it. Just give my office a call. I guarantee if we take you as a client, we'll get you out of your timeshare, or you'll pay nothing. Attorneys, this was meant to be funny, so please don't sue me, especially my friend Kenneth from Black River Falls, Wisconsin.
Call now for your free timeshare exit info kit. 800-613-5454. 800-613-5454. 800-613-5454.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Warm and dry today with a high temperature in the mid to upper 80s and a little breeze out of the south. Should be a nice day. Lots of sunshine. We'll cloud up a little bit at times tomorrow, but that high temperature reaching into the 90s, about 93 with the heat index at 96 on Friday. And high temperatures of about 97 degrees over the weekend with the heat index at 106. So an extreme heat watch goes into effect for Saturday and Sunday. I'm KMOB First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
Tony Colombo here for the Farmers Co-op Old Town Country Store in Old Town St. Peters, where they have a huge selection of products and services for your yard and home, including a full line of lawn and garden products, a full line of products for animal care, and that includes anything from livestock to the family dog or cat. They'll fill any size propane tank for about half the price of a new one, and so much more. Visit them in St. Peters on 2nd Street, right behind the QT at 70 and Mid-Rivers Mall Drive, and check out all their products and services at oldtowncountrystore.com.
Nate Lucas here for the Village Bar in the heart of Des Peres. Since 1948, the Village Bar has been the go-to destination for delicious food, cold drinks, and unbeatable atmosphere. Savor their famous wings, burgers, and onion rings, or grab a drink from their fully stocked bar. Catch all the big games and enjoy the company of their friendly staff. Plus, don't miss the 1879 Distillery, a one-of-a-kind experience right next door. The Village Bar offers the best value in town. Find the Village Bar on Facebook and come experience where history meets great times. You'll be glad you did.
News, analysis, opinion.
It almost seems common sense, but, alas, common sense isn't so common these days.
News Talk STL.
Window World, simply the best for less. These guys are just so amazing. John Gillette's so cool. I actually have used them recently for something kind of off the grid, but it's a great measure of just how proactive they are and great they are, responsive they are to anybody connected to me, whether it be through real estate or the show. So I want you to know that when you do dial 314-993-1800, you're going to get simply the best for less. You're going to get the strongest, most durable, thermally superior window you're going to find anywhere in the land, double paned and looks beautiful. So I had a situation where one of my clients moved into a house, and for whatever reason, when we did the walkthrough, we kind of missed the fact that the window they kind of wanted to be redone wasn't actually done, and the people were gone already and whatever. Those things do happen. So I said, hey, I got something for you. I'm going to go ahead and get my guys at Window World to talk to you, and they'll get you a new window, brand new one window. And lo and behold, John Gillette was right on it and took care of her, Jessica. And so she's very, very happy. It's that kind of responsiveness too. A lot of these guys you talk to, like, well, we're 3 weeks out. We're this and that. They do a lot of volume. And so they have a lot of people who work for them. So when you call 314-993-1800 and you want to see the window that is the preferred window of the St. Louis Blues and the #1 seller, according to Qualified Remodeler magazine, and the recipient of the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, they will get out there lickety-splickety for you. And just tell them that Allman sent you. And, of course, they'll take good care of you as they do for everybody. It's Window World. Check it out, 314-993-1800. Simply the best for less.
This hour of the Allman Report brought to you by Proctor Drapery Blinds and Shutters. Proctor, spelled like doctor. ProctorDrapery.com.
You're the kind of person you meet at certain dismal dull affairs. Sit out of crowd talking much too loud, running up and down the stairs.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Really super happy with you. Jamie Allman here with you. Ashlyn over there with the controls. And so, well, here, let me do this really quickly. So President Trump put those, do I have one? Do I even have a 20? Let me see. I don't even have a 20, do I? Crap. You have a 20 there, Ashlyn? Oh, I have a 20 in here. Hang on. I should have prepared for this. Didn't come to rehearsal. I'll find one. I always have a 20 laying around in my backpack or something, I use it to roll up my joints. Just kidding. I don't do that, people. What is wrong with you? Hold on a second here, people. Oh, there's a 10. There's a 5. That has Alexander Hamilton on it. Screw him. I don't even like him. And I think I sometimes what I do is I unload all my 20s. And, oh, well, yeah, I can't find a 20, so I'm screwed. But anyway, I want to let you know, and you guys can see this. And if you have a 20, just drop it on by. I'll show you what's happening here. So President Trump, golly, I'm embarrassed. Need money. Poor, broke-ass man. That's what she called me last time, broke-ass man. So anyway, I have so President Trump put those beautiful flags, the new flagpoles, out in front of the White House, and it's so cool. I mean, they're so beautiful, and I'm just so glad he did it. I'm thinking to myself, well, how come no one else has done this before? Whatever. And of course, President Trump paid for them, right? So he paid for it, and so it really wasn't that big of a deal. And he decided to beautify the White House with these flags. And it reminded me of the last time a president decided to beautify the White House, and that was Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson had a wife named Rachel, and Rachel, I was hoping Jeff Allen was going to come in here. Maybe he has a 20, but everybody's around here, I guess, poor or something. But anyway, Rachel Jackson, of course, for a time there, before I was wildly distracted by a lot of things, I was working on a book about Rachel Jackson, who's an awesome person. Her father, her family were the founders of Nashville, Tennessee. They were run up by the Indians. And in fact, Rachel Jackson's dad, Donaldson, wound up being murdered by the Indians. And in fact, Vic and Ken were talking about Vic for Vets. Somebody chimed in earlier on the show and noted some hero who served in the Civil War at a place called Fort Donaldson. Donaldson is named after Rachel Jackson's dad. So anyway, Rachel Jackson is Andrew Jackson's wife, and both of them are just amazing people. You should see their love letters. I've seen them. And those two were madly in love. And you're thinking, what, Old Hickory? Really? Andrew Jackson? Crabby man that he was? Yeah, absolutely. And Phil is on there. I was going to mention Perfect Plane. Is the brewery that they have down there in Pensacola is named after a quote by Rachel Jackson that she made about that part of Florida, which was incredible. Tony has one. Thank you, Tony. I knew somebody would bail me out. Thank you, brother. Whose 20 is this? Yours?
As far as you know.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I didn't. All right, thanks so much. I was Jeff after all. Okay, so Perfect Plane is named after that quote of hers because at the time, Andrew Jackson, as a military guy, was sent down to Florida and became the governor of the Florida Territory. And the goal also, he was told by Monroe to get rid of the Seminole Indians and run them out. And Andrew Jackson did that. Everybody thinks Andrew Jackson's such a mean guy because he, killed the Indians and ran them out. But the fact of the matter is Rachel, as well as Andrew, wound up raising a child named Lincona, who was orphaned by the Creek Indian War. So literally Andrew Jackson picked up Lincona from the battlefield, brought him home to the Hermitage where Rachel Jackson and Andrew Jackson raised him. Ultimately, and of course, I don't want to get too far into this, but I can't stand John Quincy Adams. They're like the Adams family or like the Bush family, John Quincy Adams stole the election from Andrew Jackson in 1824, and he and John Henry, Henry Clay, plotted to steal the election through the House of Representatives. Henry Clay wound up being John Quincy Adams' Secretary of State. Jackson was pissed. He came back to run in 1828. He was the first non-Eastern Seaboard candidate to win the presidency of the United States. He was the first person from Appalachia to win the presidency of the United States. Very cool dude. So, and a great guy, and also totally in love with Rachel Jackson. What happened, though, at that time, by the time they had the 1828 election, that was the first time in election history that the wife of a candidate was dragged through the mud, and they actually accused her of being an adulteress, even though Rachel Jackson's husband, at the time, the husband was the guys were the only ones who were able to do the court papers, and her ex-husband faked the divorce papers. And so when she married Andrew Jackson, she really wasn't unmarried to this guy by his own plan. So they decided she was an adulteress and called her that. And of course, it just absolutely destroyed her. It was all put in all these publications and things like that. And it was a very hard past years, already hard because he was gone all the time as a war hero. And then, of course, at the Battle of New Orleans, and you also noticed that his statues down there at Jackson Square in New Orleans. That's where Ethan and I took our last trip together before he went off to Iraq, sat there, smoked a cigar. I said, you know what? You not get a statue of yourself, but you're always going to be my hero. That's what I told him when we were looking at the statue of Andrew Jackson. Anyway, so Rachel Jackson, it's hard for her. The first election was rough. Second election was even worse. But in 1828, Andrew Jackson wound up winning the election. Rachel Jackson, that Christmas, died. She was sick. Some people say she died of a broken heart because of her depression over being dragged through the mud. And even though her husband had won, she was spent. So around Christmas time in 1828, before Andrew Jackson was sworn in, Rachel Jackson, his wife, his hero, his lovely gem of a woman, died suddenly. She was buried in her inauguration gown. That's how close they were to being, but she was buried, and she remains buried in her inauguration gown right there at the Hermitage. And believe me, Andrew Jackson, by that time, was pissed. And that's why he went up to D.C. and drained the swamp up there and went after every single one of his enemies. And when you talk about to the victor go the spoils, that's where they all went, the spoil system. He came in and completely and totally cleaned house. It's not surprising that President Trump has a picture of Andrew Jackson in the Oval Office, because he's probably as close to an Andrew Jackson as you could possibly get. People crabbed about him, called him old hickory, whatever, but he said, bite me, and didn't care. So back to the decoration of the White House. So on the Hermitage plantation, they did have slaves. Actually, Andrew Jackson armed his slaves. Like, he gave them guns so they could hunt and do that kind of thing. I'm not saying it makes slavery all great. What I'm saying is, in fact, he's buried right next to the head slave. Now, again, I'm not saying that makes slavery great. I'm not saying that, but they did. Anyway, so at the Hermitage, it's beautiful, and there are these gorgeous magnolia trees all over the Hermitage grounds. And Rachel Jackson loved the magnolia trees. I don't know whether you've ever seen them and how they bloom, and they have these beautiful white blooms and everything else, and these gorgeous trees. So what Andrew Jackson did to memorialize Rachel Jackson, because she wasn't going to be there with him, but he wanted a part of her there with him. So he brought up some sprigs of magnolia tree and planted them at the White House. So when you look on the back of a $20 bill, if you have one, and this is the front of the White House, if you look at the back of a $20 bill, you'll see on each side of the depiction of the White House 2 trees, and those are the magnolia trees. And it's on the $20 bill, which, of course, Andrew Jackson is on. But you'll see those 2 magnolia trees that he planted, and they wound up growing and became part of White House pictorial lore. You know, last time a president really ever did anything to the exterior of the White House the way President Trump did with the flags. These magnolia trees aren't there anymore. The last one died. I mean, and if you can imagine, they were planted in 1828 and grew, and the last one died in 2017, a year after President Trump took office. So those things are hardy. They last a long time. But anyway, that's a long story, but I think a mildly interesting one over about the last time a president actually significantly decorated the White House, and Trump, obviously with his thing, did it well. Ashton, can you put this in your pocket? Save it for after the show. Let's pretend that those guys never gave this to me, and I'm going to be $20 richer. I'll give you $5 of it. Okay, we'll split it. Give you $5 of it, and Jeff won't. They won't know. They'll forget.
As long as you split it with me, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are swimming in dough. They forgot. They already forgot that we had the $20 bill. They already forgot about it. I mean, they burn those as a ritual in the evening time. They burn their 20. They burn all their ones because They don't need those. Who needs ones? They say. Well, I'm not a peasant. They say. So they keep the 20s and everything else in a big money clip. I've seen Jeff's money clip. It's just like this fat. It's unbelievable, unreal. So anyway, that's the story. It's really kind of cool, and I'm going to get back to writing this. But I really want to write this book because I do believe that Rachel Jackson, quite more than anybody, probably any woman in history, probably was the most capable of being the next president of the United States. One more thing. Rachel Jackson was tiny, and because of her dad being up in Washington as a bigwig in the military, she knew Quincy Adams' wife, James Monroe's wife, everything else. And check this out. Rachel Jackson smoked a pipe. She smoked this little silver pipe. And of course, everybody in D.C., all these elitists in D.C., thought that was such an unwashed thing to do. But, she's from Tennessee, man. These people were rock and roll or frontier people. They were tough as nails, and she was a tough cookie, too. But yeah, she smoked a cute little silver pipe. All right, people. Oh, you should see what's happening in New York City. It's the attack of the Enviro snitches. I'll have that for you on the other side here. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
And your father still perfecting ways of making silly wax. You better stop or look around. Here he comes. Here he comes.
I think we should be able to have a civil conversation.
The news and talk that matters to St. Louis.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity.
News Talk STL.
Ladies and gentlemen, what timing? I was just talking about magnolia trees, and here I am talking about trees with Hanson's Tree Service. And whether it's your magnolia, which I hope isn't dying, for crying out loud, those things are really super hardy, but every tree has its moments. I've had one in my yard, this beautiful white pine, I believe it was a big, tall tree, but it died, and it's about more than 100 years old, and Hanson's Tree took it down. I was able to pay over time, which you will be too, because they have financing plans for you, and they get it done. You never know they're there. I mean, I left the stump. You could always do the stump removal if you really wanted to. I left the stump because I wanted to kind of have it still around, and because I just wanted to keep that part of the tree around. But anyway, they will take care of your trees. You got to understand, I saw a story, I think it was in the Post-Dispatch, about how the weather that we've had of late, all the wind, all the rain, the storms, everything else, just because your tree is still standing doesn't mean it hasn't been stressed by the weather, or it doesn't mean that it hasn't been destabilized by the wind and that kind of thing. So you really need to have those checked. If you're unsure about it, make sure Jesse and the team get out there, take care of it, and give you an assessment of what exactly is going on. Again, also, I know it's like, right here in middle of June already, but you could still do all of your mulching, all of your gardening, whatever. The mulching is beautiful. They have all different kinds of colors for you. They have the red, they have the dark brown, they have the black, whatever it happens to be. And all different cuts, too. Sometimes you like the bigger, thicker ones or the thinner ones, whatever it is you like. They'll deliver to your doorstep, or not your doorstep, but your backyard, and then you can spread it any way you want it. It's right there at Hanson's Tree Service, longtime supporters of free, common sense, conservative radio, hansonstree.com.
Hey, firearms enthusiast, looking for a family and veteran-owned shop with a wide selection of products and services? Head to DG Firearms, 115 Business Highway 61 North in Bowling Green. DG Firearms has been your one-stop shop for custom ARs, Cerakoting, laser engraving, gunsmithing, suppressors, ammo, and reloading supplies. DG Firearms, 115 Business Highway 61 North in Bowling Green, and online at dgfirearmsllc.com.
Success. It's discipline. It's teamwork. It's the drive and passion inside of us that comes before all recognition. It's the best in each of us, made better by the best in all of us. Whatever success looks like to you, Stifel is invested in yours. That's why Stifel is one of the fastest growing global wealth management firms in the country. So whether you're an advisor or an investor, choose Stifel, where success means success. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Hey there, it's Vic. Are you in a constant battle with mosquitoes outside your house? Well, stop smacking yourself in the face. Go to mosquitojoe.com now, 855-ASK-A-JOE, to get more information and a free quote with Mosquito Joe. Outside is fun again.
News, analysis, opinion.
Federal agents are being attacked in the city of Los Angeles.
Let's get more people involved. We're not going to let our country be torn apart.
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here. Really super happy to be with you. And, you know, they haven't come in for their 20 yet either, Ashley. Isn't that cool? Like, you'd think during the break they'd come in and grab it back. But they're probably acting like they don't want to be too desperate looking because, you know, obviously how wealthy they are. So they don't want to be too desperate because it's like, if you're really that much of a baller, you don't come chasing after your 20 the minute they get off the air, right? It's a thing.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, so you got to kind of have a little plan going on. And so they're going to act like they really don't need it. And then, you know, afterwards, and then what they'll do is they'll probably let us steal it and then accuse us of theft. And then it'll be a big deal. And that's what we're being set up. I have this really strong feeling. All right, speaking of being set up. So check this out. I got a quick story. So I'm really feel like I'm, you know, because Lily and Natalie's 17, Lily's 15, and they're the only two still left at home. Aiden's off into the hinterlands, and of course, obviously, you know, Ethan's in San Diego, Katie's in Brooklyn, and Aiden's soon to be back in Arizona. So the two girls are still at home. So I feel like I've taught Natalie's gradually learning. And Lily is a little sweetheart. She's just, you know, my little funny little puppy, kitty. And so, and Natalie's more like, you know, kind of like she's really super smart, wise, and, you know, kind of really just a go-getter. But Lily is too, but she's 2 years younger. They're both very close. So I'm having a beer. I finish my beer and I throw the beer in the trash can. Not in the recycling box, you know, and sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. But since they were both standing there, I decided to go ahead and throw it right in the trash can instead of the recycling box, because we have a recycling box, even though that's stupid and they don't recycle. Oh, I know they're building some recycling centers. It all goes into the same place. So anyway, Lily says, you should put that in the recycling box. And Natalie's like, oh, it's all goes to the same place. I'm thinking, oh, I taught her well, didn't I? She's wise to the world. And some of you are like, you're corrupting your baby. Some enviro crazy out there is probably saying that. But anyway, the fact of the matter is, I've said this before, like recycling is a joke. There's no market for recycled paper. If you've ever tried to read a newspaper on recycled paper, it's all coming off on your fingers. And so a lot of newspaper outfits have stopped even utilizing the operation. So they're not even doing anything with it. They're using regular paper. So some of them are still doing it. And the other thing is, for instance, glass. Like, there's no market for recycled glass. There are markets for reusable beer bottles and things like that. I've seen that before. But recycled glass, there's really no market for it, to the point where now they use recycled glass and grind it up, and they put that in sand traps of golf courses. So most of the sand you see on golf courses is largely made up of really recycled glass. That's the market for recycled glass. And of course, recycled plastics. I mean, there are some uses for some recycled plastics. They do some of that, but for the most part, the plastics and the hard plastics and all those other things, two things they're mostly used for. They're used for park benches. So when you go to a park and you see a bench, it's probably made out of recycled plastic, which is turned into a resin, and it's a park bench. Other recycled plastics and products make the all the little squares and things you see at the bottom of a playground, like so the kids don't bust their heads when they fall. That's all stuff that's from recyclables, but there's no market really for recycle. There's some recycled cardboard, some markets there, but for the most part, it all goes into the same place, and it all goes into a landfill. I know Kirkwood at one point had a recycling center. You'd bring all your recycling centers and stuff there, and that closed. I think there's some other recycling center being built at St. Charles, whatever, but no one's going to be taking their stuff to a recycling center. You're just not going to do it. And you're going to throw it in the trash regardless. And then they do kind of still pretend like the Republic Services, we still have one can for recyclables and one can for trash. And it's like one truck comes and picks up the recyclables, the other truck comes and pick up the trash, and they all go exactly to the same landfill, probably. So anyway, it's all pardon the pun, garbage, right? So anyway, this is happening in New York. So CBS decided they were going to do the story lauding these enviro snitches. These are people who are out and about in New York City and paid to tattletale on individuals who allow their vehicles to idle in New York City. So this is kind of like a shades of what happened during COVID, when you had all these snitches and all these Karens and all these. Oh, I said I wasn't going to do that. Sorry, Karen. All these finger waggers and all these people who were monitoring who was wearing a mask or who wasn't getting vaccinated or who was doing this or who wasn't that, who was eating, who was opening their restaurants. I'll never forget, like I busted these people. This is kind of famous right now, so it's pretty cool. You can look it up. So when Sam Page decided they were going to open up a website, this was like 3 years ago. I can't remember, 2021, 20? Open up a website where you could go on the website and rat out your employer for having people come to work or for not having a mask policy, whatever. And so you'd rat out the employer, and they put it on a website, and they put in small print that it wasn't going to, it's not anonymous. But these idiots still filled it out anyway. They still put their names on it, their phone numbers and everything else. And Sam Page reminded him it's not anonymous, but Sam Page didn't care because they wanted to rat out these people and whatever. So what I did was when I found out it wasn't anonymous, I said, this is going to be great. I'm going to wait about 2 weeks, and then I'm going to request through a Freedom of Information Act request. I'm going to request all the people, the names and everything else of all the people who tattletaled. I'm going to put them on Facebook. I'm going to out them. It wasn't doxing them because this was a document that was already in existence. So it wasn't me. It was, if anybody doxed them, it was the county. So anyway, I went and I waited 2 weeks, and lo and behold, all the idiots wandered into the spider web. And then I requested through the Freedom of Information Act request, I requested the whole list of all the people, and I published it on Facebook. So all these people, like the guys who run businesses, found out their employee was ratting them out because their name was right there. It was great. I mean, and I didn't feel bad about it at all. I did redact, like, for instance, some of the personal information, but it was really a sensation. It was great, and they got everything they deserved. I wasn't punishing them for doing it. What I was doing was I was teaching them that you get in bed with Big Brother and the government, you get in bed with them, they'll always screw you because they don't care about you. Do not trust them. They wanted you so that they could crack down on people. And then once you were discovered and found out, they discarded you like trash. So I said, this is your lesson. Don't trust Sam Page ever again. So anyway, now now in New York City, they're actually now paying people to tattletale. It's like like no one's learned from the COVID mistakes and that Big Brother George Orwell type of life we live. They're back to it now. This time with the so-called pollution from idling trucks.
Calls himself Streeter, a soldier in the war on idling.
Can you believe that? He calls himself Streeter, a soldier in the war on idling. It's like this guy willingly decided he was going to allow himself to be put on TV and be recognized and awarded the title of biggest jackass on the planet. Can you believe this? I love this so much.
He calls himself Streeter, a soldier in the war on idling.
He's riding around on a bicycle too, without a helmet, by the way. He should be reported about. He's not wearing a helmet. And then he's sitting there with a little notepad writing down the license plate of an idling truck.
Shortly after 6, I'm out on my bike looking for idling trucks.
2 years ago, he gave up his job in marketing to look for drivers running their engines full time.
He gave up a job in marketing because tattletaling and being paid by the government was such a lucrative job.
I'm essentially biking 6, 7, 8, 9 hours a day.
In New York City, it's against the law for trucks and non-city buses to idle for more than 3 minutes. But the law is rarely enforced.
Right there.
And that's where the big money comes in for Streeter and others who report idlers. It's called the Citizens Air Complaint Program. The person who sees a truck or bus idling records it, reports it, and keeps 25% of the fines, which typically range from $350 to $600.
I mean, this kind of deputization has got to be, there's got to be a legal challenge to this. To deputize private citizens to enforce your laws is really a bad idea, especially when one of these people gets their butt kicked. But to simply hire people as the government's authoritarian Gestapo is really pretty outrageous. And I don't know how long this is going to last, but CBS News, of course, is celebrating it because they like this kind of stuff. And the fact that there's a law at all in New York City, that's another story altogether. But typical of our authoritarian universe in there in New York City. Now, ladies and gentlemen, speaking, everybody's always on the lookout for authoritarian governmental entities, and none other than the Show Me Institute is fantastic at that. Brenda Talent, the executive director of the Show Me Institute, is on this Thursday with me right now. As usual, you are. Brenda Talent, how are you?
I'm fine, Jamie. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thanks for holding on. And so we've got some new property tax rules that we are dealing with. By the way, I don't even know how to do this. Maybe you guys know some people like that. I did know of a group called PAR, and I'm talking about a real estate assessment. I'm talking about that. So, and I know them. I used to work with them because the assessments in St. Louis County are so over the top. I just got my recent assessment in the mail, and my home is assessed at 3 times what I purchased it for.
Well, gosh, Jamie, you're a great investor.
Yeah, right. I know. I mean, there's no way I'd ever, whatever they assessed it at, there's no way I would ever be able to sell my home at that level. And so, I mean, there are people up in arms all over the county over these inflated assessments. But I know you're just talking about some of the new property tax rules. So tell me about them.
Well, they're pretty complex, Jamie. I mean, with this special session that they had, they created 3 different categories of counties and how they can assess property taxes. And I'm afraid to say that if you're in St. Louis County or St. Louis City, nothing's going to change. You're going to be still dealing with the same situation. But if you were to move, for example, to St. Charles, they have the option to become what's called a 0% county, which means that if the voters choose to do so, when there's a property tax increase, you need to have voter approval, or if you had property improvement, your taxes go. But basically, if you live in one of those counties and they vote to go ahead and adopt being a 0% county, their property taxes won't go up. They'll get a credit, sort of be frozen in time. We also have what's called 5% counties, and in those counties, if the voters approve it, their reassessment will be capped at the lower of 5% or the inflation rate. But then there's a whole different category of counties, of which St. Louis is one of them, where things don't change. I mean, you can get a huge property tax assessment. I mean, there's rollback generally for the county, but we won't see the 0 or 5%. And this is such, Jamie, for the Institute. I mean, we look at taxes and we talk about what's the least bad. I mean, if government is going to impose a tax on you, which is the least bad, and it's typically property tax. I mean, the studies show this. The worst tax to impose is an income tax, corporate income tax, and then below that, sales tax. But the reason is because when you tax income, you're really taxing the production of income. You're disincentivizing productivity. Property taxes, the land is fixed. You have really predictability. And it's a fair tax. It should be low, of course. Now in Missouri, well, there's a whole different game afoot. And, it's going to be interesting because what's going to happen is when we look at our school districts, which are many of them highly dependent on property taxes. If you live in an area like I live in, I'm in the Rockwood School District, but I live in St. Louis County. Rockwood encompasses St. Louis County, Jefferson County, which is a 0%, or Franklin, which is also a 0%. I forget how those lines go. But that means there are going to be residents, if this law is upheld, where if they live in Jefferson or Franklin, their property taxes are frozen. Well, who's going to bear the burden of the increased, needs of the school district? It'll be the people living in St. Louis County.
Yeah.
Or the schools are going to start turning to income tax again because, of course, they do get funding from the state. And the funding from the state is funded primarily through income taxes. So it just, it's like, does anyone ever actually pay attention to how taxes should be structured and also what's equitable? I mean, it's pretty clear this, in my opinion, that we have these carve-outs because they were trying to get votes for giving away big tax subsidies to sports teams. I mean, it's sort of like, we'll give you this, we'll let your county become a 0% or yours can become a 5%, and you let us give billions away to these rich billionaires who own these sports teams.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question because this is more of an historical question. And it's something that I don't think people ask because we accept it all the time as just the way it is. But why are schools funded by property taxes? And when it comes to schools needing that money, and even some fire departments or police departments or whatever, why are they funded by property taxes and not by, like, for instance, the general budget or what have you?
I'm going to say, Jamie, I'm going to guess on this one because I actually haven't researched it, but my intuition would tell me the reason you see it tied to property is you think of, okay, you have a school district that has boundaries, right? And the kids within those boundaries are going to be attending that school. And so you're trying to associate the people who are using the public school with the people located there. And so the property tax became an easy way of doing it. Now, and I would say property taxes, again, when you look at taxes that are least destructive of economic activity, those would be the ones. But once you start treating people differently, you're messing up the entire system.
Right. No, that makes all the sense in the world. And of course, then you move on to, like, well, the personal property tax, which is something that I know the legislature in Missouri has grappled with. They haven't been able to adequately roll that back the way it should be. And of course, the taxing of depreciable assets is just, outrageous. And maybe, maybe that's usually what happens is people will say, well, we can't get rid of the personal property tax because we need that to fund the police or the fire or whatever else it is they're funding. And I think that we're going to have to be able to teach some of these governments to budget the way everybody else has to budget and not always be reliant on having to take from the citizenry a nickel and dime them to death.
It's, a tax system is a difficult one. No one likes taxes. I mean, you can name any tax you want, and we're going to find a group of people who don't like it. But again, there's a lot of research from an economic standpoint which talk about what taxes create the least damage and allow people to prosper and to really enjoy the fruits of their labor. So the least bad is a property tax. The worst is when you start taxing income because you're discouraging people from producing income. And of course, you can add the personal income tax, property tax in there too, because when you start looking at that, people paid sales tax on buying property. And then here you go again, hitting again with taxes. And as we know from COVID, based upon the fair market value, people saw an increase in the taxes they were paid, even though, they're looking at their cars and going, it's 10 years old. How do I owe more now than I used to?
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Well, so, ultimately with all of these different percent counties, 0% counties, unaffected counties, and 5% counties, how ultimately would this play out? So when you're talking about the inequity of it all and the problematic nature of it all, ultimately what could happen? Like, so what would be the resolution to this?
I'm pretty sure, Jamie, we're going to see lawsuits on this because there are some provisions in the Constitution about uniformity within the territorial limits of an authority levying the tax. Now, counties collect these taxes, but they're collecting them for a lot of different political subdivisions, whether it's, a school district, a fire district, or whatever. And it's hard to envision how this is uniform in what I would call the common sense interpretation of the word, where in one part of, let's just say again, Rockwood School District, people are not paying on the full assessed value of their property, but other people in Rockwood are, because the other people are getting a credit, but people in St. Louis County aren't.
Yeah.
And of course, it creates a lot of distortions, and it creates distortions because, again, what you're doing is you're affecting the operation of the market. You're shifting costs. So if I've been in a home longer, if someone buys a home new, they're going to be assessed based upon what they paid for that property. But if my property taxes are frozen, well, basically, again, I'm shifting the burden of that taxation to new people coming in the area, even though that money is used for services provided to all of us. It actually is not fair. We saw in California when they had, and I always get the prop wrong, Prop 13, Prop 3, I don't remember, where they froze property taxes. What happened in California? It distorted the market completely, and it was not a good thing.
Yeah. Wow. I'm glad you guys are on it. And this is Brenda Talent with the Show Me Institute, showmeinstitute.org. Brenda Talent, we appreciate you as always. Thanks for being such great watchdogs for us out there on things that sometimes people, I mean, man, because this doesn't really normally make the news, and news people just aren't sometimes really super interested in this kind of stuff that affect probably more people than anything else they're reporting on, really. And so thank you guys for being there for us, our sentries, so to speak.
Well, thank you for having me, Jamie.
All right. That is the great Brenda Talent with the Show Me Institute, showmeinstitute.org. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Wherever I'm at, home, car, wherever.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Just the convenience on the phone.
Streaming live on the mobile app.
Love the new app.
And listen anytime,
everywhere,
anywhere.
So far, I haven't bothered my buddy Sean, who's an electrician with Grasser Electric. Usually around this time, giving him a call. I can't figure out the lights outside here, the lights inside there, and all that kind of stuff. I think I'm getting close because I love these guys. And Grasser Electric is just an amazing organization. I've known Shane going on 20 years. He's been a supporter of free common sense radio from the day that I called it Common Sense Radio. Shane Grasser, and you talk about common sense. This guy knows it all about common sense approaches to all of your electrical needs. The backup generator, a lot of you have gone through the storms the last month and a half or so. You're without power, and you're like, man, I sure wish I had a backup generator. Well, Grasser Electric has a really great brand for you. It's easily installed. It's super discreet, and the only way you're going to ever really know that it happens to be there is when your power is on while other people's power is off. It's a great organization, Grasser Electric, and they do both residential and commercial. No job is too big or too small. If you have a bunch of things that have been piling up and you finally want to get them all taken care of in one fell swoop one day, they'll be able to do that for you at Grasser Electric. Also, 24-hour emergency service, grasserelectric.com.
Never paint again. This is Darren, owner of Rhino Shield. Want to eliminate painting your home, business, or church? Call the experts at Rhino Shield. Rhino Shield is a revolutionary ceramic wall coating to regular paint and vinyl. Perfect for aluminum, steel, unpainted brick, block, stucco, EIFS, drive-it, cement board, and wood sidings. Rhino Shield eliminates wasting time and money painting year after year. Our ceramic coating deflects 90% of the sun's UV rays and 100% of the moisture. Our clients want affordable protection with the elimination of maintenance. Rhino Shield protects your biggest investment while maintaining your architectural features and gives you the curb appeal you deserve. Make your home great again by working with the Rhino Shield experts. A+ rated with the BBB. Call 877-25-RHINO, 877-25-RHINO, or 877-25rhino.com. See what we did there? Genius. Tell them, ladies.
Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Want to hear the best kept secret in St. Louis? Steph's Pizza. We're not afraid to compare squares. According to our customers, we have the best St. Louis style pizza anywhere, and we can't disagree. Dine in, pick up, or delivery in St. Peters, St. Charles, Lake St. Louis on Pond Fort Trail, and the original Stephanitas in O'Fallon on Veterans Memorial Parkway. Check us out at Steph'sPizza.com. Steph's Pizza. We're not afraid to compare squares.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gemini Wealth Group, thegeminiwealthgroup.com, and Jeff Portman, who is a guru when it comes to making sure that you are absolutely on top of it when it comes to your retirement. You can call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123, 314-888-0123, thegeminiwealthgroup.com. These guys are fantastic. They're going to make sure that you are well diversified. They're going to make sure that you are thinking long-term, not short-term. They're going to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row as it relates to your liabilities, whether it be taxes, health care, whatever it happens to be, and, of course, your housing, all that kind of thing. When you do retire, the chances are pretty good you're going to be living a long time. So you're going into 10 years, you're going into 20 years, maybe even 30 years. And so you want to make sure that you are ready to rock and roll, comfortable, and not struggling through your retirement. If you are brand new retired and you don't have anybody working out for you or doing whatever, then make sure you, or even if you do, make sure you get that second opinion or that first opinion, and make sure that you have somebody on your side as you head into retirement. That perfect group would be the Gemini Wealth Group, the GeminiWealthGroup.com, 314-888-0123. That's Jeff Portman's number, the GeminiWealthGroup.com.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
Former President Obama taking a swipe at affluent liberals, saying all of us are going to be tested.
Larry Connors USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Well, this isn't the kind of story I normally get into. I don't like getting into people's personal lives. This guy, Democrats sometimes absolutely have no. This is a guy who defeated Kerry Lake in Arizona. He just have no sense of awareness. So Ruben Gallego is the guy who at one time divorced his pregnant wife. She was going to be giving birth any day. And he served her divorce papers, even though she was just days away from giving birth. So he marries a new chick. And even though he wasn't really worried about what was happening to his ex-wife while she was having his baby, now he is babbling on the internet about his second wife who is pregnant and what would happen if Republicans succeed in cutting Medicaid. But of course, we all know that the cuts only affect those who are here illegally or accessing Medicaid via fraudulent circumstances. So he knows that it's not going to affect his second wife giving birth. But the fact that he's even having the balls to go out on the internet when everybody knows what he did to his first wife is really crazy. Here you go.
Watch this. I hope my son has been born and is healthy. I've been going to almost every appointment, doctor appointments with my wife. And every time I go there, I think about the fact that there's a lot of families that don't have the same advantages I do, whether it's like the flexibility of leaving work or being able to pay for this. And now you have Republicans that are going to be cutting Medicaid. 50% of children born in Arizona are born through a Medicaid plan. Now, what the Republicans are going to do is they're going to go and cut Medicaid. And it's going to end up affecting some of these rural hospitals where some of these maternal care units are going to shut down.
Yeah, so Ruben's all worried now about his wife and their baby. Wasn't too worried about his wife, his ex-wife and her baby, but now he is. These guys, and he thinks that nobody even knows any of this. Dude, we kind of know what your past is. I mean, if I'm you, I'm sitting this one out. How does that sound? All right, people, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for sharing these 2 hours of the 3 Martini Lunch with the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Ashton, thank you so much. And coming up, we've got Tony Colombo. As always, Colombo and Company. Have a great rest of your day.
Tony Colombo here for my dentist, Dr. Matt Boscia at New Creation Dental Care, the one-stop shop for all your family's dental needs. And Dr. Boscia is always expanding his services, now including the incredible all-on-4 full arch implant procedure, full mouth restoration that can give you back your smile in as little as 1 day. No more suffering with damaged or missing teeth or poor-fitting dentures. You can see some amazing smile makeovers, learn more about the all-on-4 procedure, and see everything Dr. Boscia can do right now at newcreationdentalcare.com.
Hey, it's Vic, and I'm here with Kathy Connor at Connor Roofing. Kathy, what makes Connor Roofing different?
Hey, Vic. I'm glad that you asked. I think that what really sets Connor Roofing apart is our relationship with our customers. It's very important to us to develop that trust with the homeowner. This is what has allowed us to serve our friends and our neighbors in the St. Louis area for 30 years. Whether we are doing a roof or a gutter repair or even a full replacement, you can count on Connor for quality service.